The invasion of Ryukyu by forces of the Japanese feudal domain of Satsuma took place in 1609, and marked the beginning of the Ryukyu kingdom's status as a vassal state under Satsuma. The invasion force was met with stiff resistance on all but one island during the campaign. Ryukyu would remain a vassal state under Satsuma, alongside its already long-established tributary relationship with China, until it was formally annexed by Japan in 1879 as Okinawa Prefecture. Etymology. The war is called disturbance of Kyu year in the sexagenary cycle, or Japanese disturbance of Kyu by Ryukyu kingdom. In Japanese, the war was called Ryukyu expansion or Ryukyuri during the Edo period, and was called Okinawa expansion campaign by many Japanese scholars before World War II. Background. Satsuma's invasion of Ryukyu was the climax of a long tradition of relations between the kingdom and the Shimazu clan of Satsuma. The two regions had been engaged in trade for at least several centuries and possibly for far longer than that. In addition, Ryukyu at times had paid tribute to the Muromachi shogunate of Japan as it did to China since 1372. In the final decades of the 16th century, the Shimazu clan, along with Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who ruled Japan from 1582 to 1598, requested or demanded various types of aid or service from the kingdom on a number of occasions. King Shonei met some of these demands. Shonei sent a tribute ship, the Iabuna, to Satsuma in February or March 1592, and agreed to provide approximately half of his allocated burden in preparation for the invasion of Korea, in 1593. However, Shonei also ignored many communications from Shimazu and Hideyoshi, which spurred the Shimazu, with the permission of the newly established Tokugawa shogunate, to invade Ryukyu in 1609, claiming it a punitive mission. One of the chief events which spurred Satsuma to aggression occurred when Hideyoshi launched the first of two invasions of Korea. In 1591, Shimazu Yoshihisa said that Hideyoshi ordered Ryukyu and Satsuma to contribute 15,000 troops in order to invade China. However, Ryukyu is a far country and Japanese military strategy is unfamiliar to your forces. I exempt you from mobilization of the troops. In exchange, however, you must supply 10 months' rations for 7,000 troops. Shonei supplied only half in 1593. Following Hideyoshi's death in 1598, and Tokugawa Ieyasu's subsequent rise to power, Shonei was asked by Satsuma to formally submit to the new shogunate, a request which was ignored. In 1603, some Ryukyu sailors were cast ashore on the coast of the Sendai domain. Tokugawa Ieyasu sent him back to Ryukyu. The Shimazu asked Ryukyu to thank Ieyasu again, but Ryukyu ignored the request. The Shimazu then requested to launch a punitive mission against Ryukyu. Approximately 100 ships carrying roughly 3,000 soldiers concentrated at Yamakawa, disambiguation needed, harbor on March 1, 1609. Ichirima Gobi, who was one of them, would write a diary documenting the expedition. The fleet left harbor on March 4, under the command of Kabiyama Hisataka and Hirata Masamune. Invasion of Amami Oshima. The Satsuma fleet arrived at Amami Oshima on March 7. The Amamian people did not resist, but assisted the Satsuma army. Tamertan, the chief of Kasari, was the subject of Kabiyama, and called on the Amamian people to surrender. Shigeteru, the chief of Yakiuchi, supplied the Satsuma army. On March 16, 13 ships left for Tokunoshima in advance. The others left Amami at 0600, March 20. On March 10, Shonei was informed of Satsuma's landing on Amami. He sent Iban, the priest of Tenryu Temple, to Amami in order to surrender, but Iban missed contact with the Satsuma army. The reason was unclear. Invasion of Tokunoshima. On March 17, 13 ships arrived at Tokunoshima. 2 ships arrived at Kanaguma, and nothing happened. 8 ships arrived at Wanya. Ships were besieged all night by 1,000 people. On March 18, Satsuma troops got off the ships, fired, and killed 50 people. 3 ships arrived at Akitoku. They were attacked at the water's edge by the Akitoku people. However, troops quickly fought back and killed 20 to 30 people. The Satsuma fleet arrived at Akitoku at 1600, March 20. On March 21, Kabiyama left for Okierabu Island with 10 ships in advance. Others left Tokunoshima at 1000, March 24, and arrived at Okierabu at sunset. They met Kabiyama and his ships there, and quickly left for Ryukyu Island. Invasion of Ryukyu Island. The Satsuma fleet arrived at Unten Harbor on the Motobu Peninsula of Ryukyu Island on March 25, 1800. On March 27, some disembarked. They found Nakijin Castle deserted. They set fire in several places. As soon as Shonei heard of Satsuma's arrival at Nakijin, he called Kikuan a Zen master. He gave an imperial order to Kikuan. You had lived in Satsuma for several years, so you know 3 lords of the Shimazu clan very much. Go and make a proposal for peace. Kikuan and his diplomatic mission left the Ryukyu royal capital, Shori at 0800, March 26, and arrived at Kuraha at 1200. They left Kuraha for Ono by boat. On March 27, they left Ono by boat, and arrived at Nakijin. Kikuan talked with Kabiyama. Kabiyama ordered peace talks at Naha. In the early morning of March 29, the Satsuma fleet and Kikuan left Unten Harbor. They arrived at Oen at 1800. The Ryukyu mission left immediately, and arrived at Makiminata at 2200. They left the boat for Shori there, and arrived late at night. Kikuan reported Kabiyama's order to Shonei, and went down to Naha in the early morning. At Hoenn, Kabiyama sent some officers to Naha in order to fulfill his promise, while he disembarked his other men, because he heard that there was a chain at the entrance of Naha harbor. If there is a chain, no ship can enter the harbor. Kabiyama and his army landed at Hoenn, and marched to Shori. At 1400 April 1, Satsuma ships entered Naha harbor. Immediately they held peace talks at Oimais in Naha. At that time, there was a fire in Shori. The Kabiyama's army reacted and invaded. Some Satsuma officers ran up to Shori from Naha, and calmed down troops. Because Shonei gave Kabiyama his own brother Shoko, and all 3 of his ministers as hostage, Kabiyama ordered his men to go to Naha from Shori. All of the Satsuma army arrived in Naha at 1600, April 1. On April 4, Shonei left Shori Castle. On April 5, some Satsuma officers entered the castle, and started making an inventory of treasures in the castle. On May 17, Shonei left Unten Harbor for Satsuma along with roughly 100 of his officials. In August 1610, he met with the retired shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu in Sunpu. He was then taken to Edo for a formal audience with Shogun Tokugawa Hidetada on August 28. On December 24, he arrived at Kagoshima, where he was forced to formally surrender and to declare a number of oaths to the Shimazu clan. In 1611, 2 years after the invasion, the king returned to his castle at Shori. In the king's absence, Kabiyama Hisataka and his deputy Honda Chikamasa governed the islands on behalf of their lord Shimazu Tadatsune. 14 samurai officials from Satsuma, along with 163 of their staff, examined the kingdom's political structures and economic productivity, and conducted land surveys of all the islands. Following the king's return to Shori and the resumption of governance under the royal establishment, some Ryukyuan officials went to Kagoshima as hostages. Kunigami Ajisawa lived in Kagoshima from 1614 to 1616. He served Shimazu Ieyasu in battle in the 1615 siege of Osaka, but the war was over before their arrival. Consequences: The surrender documents signed at Kagoshima in 1611 were accompanied by a series of oaths. The king and his councillors were made to swear that the islands of Ryukyu have from ancient times been a feudal dependency of Satsuma, and that there was a long-standing tradition of sending tribute and congratulatory missions on the succession of the Satsuma lords, though these were all falsehoods. The oaths also included stipulations that the kingdom admit its wrongdoing in ignoring and rejecting numerous requests for materials and for manpower, that the invasion was justified and deserved, and that the Lord of Satsuma was merciful and kind in allowing the king and his officers to return home and to remain in power. Finally, the councillors were forced to swear their allegiance to the Shimazu over their king. Teidu, a royal councillor and commander of the kingdom's defense against the invasion, refused to sign the oaths and was beheaded. The kingdom's royal governmental structures remained intact, along with its royal lineage. The Ryukyu remained nominally independent, a foreign country, to the Japanese, and efforts were made to obscure Satsuma's domination of Ryukyu from the Chinese court, in order to ensure the continuation of trade and diplomacy, since China refused to conduct formal relations or trade with Japan at the time. However, though the king retained considerable powers, he was only permitted to operate within a framework of strict guidelines set down by Satsuma, and was required to pay considerable amounts in tribute to Satsuma on a regular basis. This framework of guidelines was largely set down by a document sometimes called the 15 Injunctions, which accompanied the oaths signed in Kagoshima in 1611, and which detailed political and economic restrictions placed upon the kingdom, prohibitions on foreign trade, diplomacy, and travel outside of that officially permitted by Satsuma were among the chief elements of these injunctions. Ryukyu's extensive trade relations with China, Southeast Asia, and Korea were turned to Satsuma's interests, and various laws were put into place forbidding interactions between Japanese and Ryukyuans, travel between the two island nations. Likewise, travel abroad from Ryukyu in general, and the reception of ships at Ryukyu's harbors, were heavily restricted, with exceptions made only for official trade and diplomatic journeys authorized by Satsuma. In addition, Amami, Oshima and a number of other northern islands now known as the Satsunan Islands were annexed into Satsuma domain and removed from the kingdom's territory. These islands remain today part of Kagoshima Prefecture, not Okinawa Prefecture.